time. Let's get right to it. I've got State Representative Brad Halbrook on the line with me. He represents the 107th District in the state of Illinois. And of course, I want to get his reaction to this. This is Pritzker on CNN this morning with Jake Tapper.
Let me just say, though, that when you have video, as you do in Minneapolis, when you have eyewitness testimony from people, it seems like there's a whole lot of evidence, and it should be adjudicated. You're 100% right. There should, in fact, be due process. That's not something that the Trump administration believes in. And indeed, they are throwing people out of the country. They're arresting U.S. citizens and people who are here legally without any due process. And in many cases, they're claiming that they're domestic terrorists, claiming that they're doing something wrong when there's zero evidence on their side.
So, Brad, due process. Due process for illegals. Due process for people like Katie Abraham, who were killed by illegals, Michael and Gail Clayton, Chloe Polson, and the list goes on. I mean, this guy doesn't know what due process means.
Exactly. And I talked about that on the House floor earlier last year. You know, we talked about where's the due process for these individuals that were murdered at the hands of illegal aliens. Where's the due process for them and their families, and families that will never heal up because their family member was taken way too soon? Where's the due process for them?
It's absent. There is none.
There's none.
No.
And these other individuals are here illegally. They're foreign nationals. I'm not sure they have due process.
Yeah.
Other than to get deported.
Well, on this same topic, you were on with Center Square, I believe, earlier this week, and you guys had sort of a longer form interview, which I was happy to see. And they were talking about the spending for illegal immigrants, and you had quite a bit to say there. Where are we at the state in terms of how much we spent, what we're still funding? Do you have a sense of that? Because, it's hard to get information, let's face it.
It is extremely hard, and that's what I talked to Greg about on that interview that morning. I mean, we're in the couple billion, $2.5–3 billion for health care. At least the governor did trim some of that back for the HBIA, the adults. The seniors still get it. Of course, the youngsters are involved in a little bit of a different program, but there's still hundreds of millions of dollars going for health care. The other thing that's very hard to track is the different block grants. There's going, let's say, to the city of Chicago to do whatever they kind of please with. All this stuff's kind of hidden. And then all the money that is going to NGOs, we talked about that in the Doge press conference that you helped bring to Springfield back in May. We talked about $1 billion that you and your team had uncovered going to NGOs to help illegal aliens get government services. I mean, I would have thought we had government and state employees to help people get services. I'm not sure why we have to grant money to NGOs to further bolster the roles of these different state programs.
So there's a lot of scuttlebutt right now because the state is quite concerned that the federal government is cutting back on the money that they are going to give the state. And this is going to come in a couple different ways. And in fact, the Chicago Tribune just published an editorial, or actually a long article. Illinois lawmakers return to Capitol facing $2.2 billion budget gap while pushing election year affordability message. It talks about a number of things, but it did say specifically, look, they are looking at, because they are terrible at record keeping and verification, it apparently looks like they're going to pay a penalty for a SNAP because they haven't verified their rolls of $700 million. They're looking, obviously, at $1 billion being suspended from daycare, and I appreciate it comes to the federal government. It looks like $1 billion of that's going to get suspended. So, what are we in for? $2.2 billion budget hole. What are they going to do?
Well, we're in for a bumpy ride, and the stuff that the feds are doing, I think they're entitled to do it. They have to have some level of accountability. And Pritzker about the SNAP funding and the error rate, they called it. He said, well, it happens to all the big states. And I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but it doesn't happen to all the large states. There's large states that are running their program really well. They don't have the error rate that Illinois does. So it brings out the question is, Why does Illinois have such a bad or such a high error rate? Why is that? And I don't know that anybody's been able to find that out, but they need to. Somebody needs to get to the bottom of that. I mean, if that's the price, $770 million, that's what Illinois has to pay for a penalty, well, then so be it. It's shameful that that's the way it has to be. But somebody's got to learn their lesson here.
Well, as Everett Durkin said, $1 billion here, $1 billion there. Finally, after a while, you're talking about real money.
It eventually adds up.
Yeah, they don't think so. That's not their attitude.
Well, no,
they think there's an endless pile of money that you can tax with. Now, you came out, you've been doing really good work on YouTube, and I highly encourage people to subscribe and follow Brad's YouTube channel. Brad, what is that channel called? I forgot.
Yeah, it's just Brad Halbrook 001. 001 is the last three digits, so Brad Halbrook 001.
So you did one, though. You're projecting that they're looking at additional income taxes of some sort?
Right. So the Speaker of the House on Tuesday telegraphed to a group that he was speaking to in Chicago that there may be a Massachusetts-style surcharge on millionaire income, which, when you look that up, I think it's 4% on any income over $1 million. And so under Pritzker, there's been nearly, if not 50 income, new revenue to the state budget. I mean, the budget's grown, 16, 17 billion under Pritzker, nearly 40, 50% in his 6 or 7 years. And so these guys, they only know how to do, they know how to do three things. They know how to pass bigger budgets. They know how to raise taxes, and they know how to borrow money. I think we're at $90 billion worth of bonded indebtedness now, a record number. All these are record spends, record taxes, record borrowing. All these are records. That's what the governor's pretty good at, is spending money. But these guys are not financial wizards.
Well, I recall back when Mike Madigan tried to pass the millionaire's tax, and he was asked by the Republican head of the Revenue Committee, the minority spokesperson at that time, David Harris, who now works for the governor administration, unfortunately. I don't know why he did that. But anyway, he asked Speaker Madigan, so why $1 million? Why $1 million? He's like, sounded like a nice round number. I mean, that's about the level of analysis you get by these bozos. They're making it up as they go. All the time.
Again, they're not financial wizards. They're just doing stuff by press release, right? It's all press release politics.
Yeah.
It's what can they get by with? What sounds good in a press release? What gets them the press pop? What is it? And that's kind of how they seem to be governing.
So I can't let you go without talking about the bill that Pritzker signed last week. He signed the grid. Is that the acronym now? I can't remember.
CRGA, I think it is.
There it is. That's maybe easier. Or maybe, no, CEJA has been revised probably. CEJA is the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act of 2021. It's probably been revised 3 times already. Maybe this is CEJA 4.0. I don't know.
It could be at least.
I mean, but this is an $8 billion boondoggle. He had no problem solving it. And here's the kicker, right, Brad? After the vote, which happened in the dark of the night on Halloween, everybody remembers that because I think we've talked about it enough. I think people should remember that. But after the vote, of course, what comes out? The long-term study by the 3 agencies, the Illinois Power Agency, the ICC, and I forgot the other one. 3 agencies come out and they literally say in that report, we're facing an energy deficit in the future. But that report, perfectly timed to be after that vote. So it was never taken into consideration, even though you, specifically, you've been really good on the energy issue. You obviously said, look, everybody knows that these data centers are eating up our energy, as are other things, that we're in an energy deficit. They didn't listen, and he signed it anyway. No changes.
Right. Yeah. This is, Illinois deregulated energy back in 1997. They're trying to re-regulate it, bring on all of the alternative energy things, but there's no clear-cut plan. It's all aspirational goals to be net zero by 2045, I think it is, or 2050. They don't have a clear-cut plan how to do it. They're just prematurely closing the coal-fired generation and the natural gas, or putting emissions caps on them. And energy demand is growing. They're pushing the EVs, which is going to consume more electric generation. And, all these things are going to require more and more electricity, all the while Pritzker and the supermajority Dems are decreasing the amount of production. And they say, well, it's the RTOs, the MISOs, and the PGAMs of the world, is they're not getting the alternative energy sources that are out there. They're not getting them online fast enough. It's their fault. Oh, and the data centers, the data centers have just fell from the sky all of a sudden. We didn't see them coming in here, and now they're just using more juice than we would have ever anticipated. Well, the fact of the matter is, they knew in 2020, or maybe as late as 2021, they knew data centers were coming because they were incentivizing them.
That's right. It's all a big scam. Okay, Brad, I want to thank you so much for coming on. You provide a lot of clarity, and you provide a lot of good information that people need to pay attention to, which they are not hearing about. That's why our show is moving to weekdays, 5 days a week for an hour, 11 a.m. to noon, because we're going to have voices like Brad Halbrook who actually know what's going on. We're going to have him on the radio so he can tell you exactly what's going down in Springfield, and then you can share that information. That's what this is about. Brad, thanks so much for joining me on The Real Story.
You're welcome.
All right, and we'll be right back.